On November 15th, 2024, at 4:47 in the afternoon, I found my daughter and granddaughter sitting on a park bench with 3 suitcases and a stuffed rabbit. My son-in-law had just kicked them out. His father had just fired her. They told her our bloodline wasn't worthy of their family name. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I simply said, "Get in the car." What they didn't know was that the empire they thought they controlled, I'd owned it all along. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. I'm 63 years old. This is the story of how I took back what was mine. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. The late afternoon sun was bleeding gold across Biscayne Bay when I saw them. My driver, Thomas, slowed the Mercedes without me asking. He'd seen her too. My Stephanie, sitting on that weathered bench near the marina, shoulders curved inward like she was trying to disappear, and beside her, pressed against her mother's side, was Maya. My grandbaby, 5 years old, wearing that pink sundress I'd bought her at Nordstrom, clutching her worn stuffed rabbit. 3 Louis Vuitton suitcases sat beside them, the expensive kind, the kind you pack when someone gives you 2 hours to leave. I stepped out before the car fully stopped. My heels clicked on the concrete path. Stephanie looked up. Her eyes were swollen, hours of crying, not minutes. Her MAC foundation was streaked and smudged. "Mom," her voice cracked. I didn't run. Running shows panic. I walked with the same measured pace I'd used in every boardroom for 28 years. Steady, deliberate, in control. Maya looked up at me with those huge brown eyes. "Grandma, when are we going home?" I crouched down, smoothed a curl behind her ear. "Soon, sweetheart. Real soon." I stood, looked at Stephanie. "Get in the car." "Mom, I don't—" "Get in the car, Stephanie." Thomas loaded the suitcases. Stephanie and Maya climbed into the back seat. I slid into the passenger seat. "Home, Thomas." He knew which home I meant. Not the one Stephanie shared with Brandon in Coral Gables. My home. The house in Coconut Grove I'd bought 28 years ago when my husband walked out. The house I'd paid for with my first big contract. The house nobody could take from me. The 17-minute drive was silent. Maya fell asleep against her mother's shoulder. Stephanie stared out the window with blank eyes. When we pulled through my gate, I turned around. "You're safe now." Stephanie nodded, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. I showed them to the guest suite upstairs, the room Stephanie had grown up in. Maya was asleep before her head hit the pillow, still holding that rabbit. "Take a bath," I told Stephanie quietly. "Then we talk." I waited until I heard water running. Then I went to my office and closed the door. My office was my sanctuary. Bookshelves, my late husband's desk, file cabinets organized by year. And on the wall, a photograph. Me at 28, standing beside my first truck. Baby Stephanie holding my hand. I'd built Apex Logistics so she'd never have to depend on anyone. And now she was upstairs with 3 suitcases and a sleeping child. I called Christine Wells, my attorney. She answered on the second ring. "Eleanor, it's late. I need you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., my house." A pause. Christine knew my tone. "What happened?" "My daughter. I'll explain tomorrow." "I'll be there." I hung up and poured myself bourbon. Stood at the window watching the dark bay. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stephanie made her choice. She's no longer welcome in this family. Do not interfere. Brandon, I read it 3 times. Then I took a screenshot and saved it to a new folder. Evidence, November 2024. Document everything, every insult, every threat, every moment when someone shows you who they really are. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up a file I hadn't looked at in months. Southeastern Logistics, corporate structure. Because there was something Brandon didn't know. Something Richard Cole, his father, had forgotten. That company Brandon thought his father owned? I owned 73% of it through shell companies so complex it would take forensic accountants months to untangle. 15 years ago, I'd learned a hard truth. Clients didn't want to sign contracts with a black woman. They wanted white men in suits. So I'd found Richard Cole, given him equity, given him the CEO title, built my empire with his face, but I'd never given him real ownership. I'd written the operating agreement myself. Every major decision required my signature. Richard had forgotten that. Brandon didn't even know I existed beyond being Stephanie's mom who never worked. I texted David Thompson, a private investigator I'd worked with before. David, I need everything on Richard Cole and Brandon Cole. Financial, personal, business. 72 hours. Name your price. His response came within 2 minutes. I'll start tonight. Usual rates. Upstairs, I heard footsteps. The bathroom door opening. Stephanie appeared in my doorway 20 minutes later, wearing my old gray cashmere robe. Maya's asleep, she said quietly. Sit. Tell me what happened. She told me everything. Slowly, painfully. This morning at 9:15, Richard had called her to his office. 2 men in suits were there, his attorney and HR. We've discovered discrepancies in the financial reports, Richard had said coldly. $280,000 missing. The transactions traced to your access codes. She'd been stunned. That's impossible. We've filed a police report for embezzlement. You're terminated effective immediately. Within 30 minutes, security escorted her out with her desk items in a box. She'd called Brandon, crying. He'd said he'd meet her at home. When she got there, he was standing in the driveway. Cold, distant. Pack what you need, he'd said. You're leaving. Brandon, your father just fired me for something I didn't do. My father doesn't make mistakes, Stephanie. You come from nothing. Your mother never worked. You got where you are by other means. Each word had been a knife. Brandon, I'm your wife. We have a daughter who deserves better than a mother who's a thief, and better than... He'd paused. Your bloodline, Stephanie. Your mother's people, wherever they came from in Africa, that's not the legacy I want for the Cole family. Stephanie's voice broke as she repeated his words to me. He gave me 2 hours to pack, said if I wasn't gone by 5 p.m., he'd call the police. I picked up Maya from daycare and I didn't know where else to go. She looked at me with tears streaming. Mom, I didn't steal anything, I swear. I know you didn't. But how? Because I know you. This is a setup. The question is why. I leaned forward. When did Brandon start pulling away? 3 months ago. He started working late, being distant, criticizing everything, my clothes, my hair, the way I laughed. Said it was too ghetto. I nodded slowly, a pattern forming. Did he ever ask you to sign anything? Last month. He said it was for refinancing the house. I trusted him, so I didn't read it. What about questions about me? My finances? He asked about Daddy's life insurance. I told him the truth, that you lived on Social Security and savings. She paused. That is true, isn't it? I didn't answer that yet. Did Richard ever ask about Apex Logistics? Once. I told him you'd just been Daddy's secretary back in the day. Oh, Stephanie. Mom, what's going on? I looked at my daughter and made a decision. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you meet with Christine Wells. We're going to fix this. But the charges won't stick because they're false. I stood. Trust me, baby. Just trust me. After she left, I sat alone for hours. At 2:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. David Thompson. Preliminary findings. Richard Cole has been rerouting company funds for 8 years. Total estimated $12 to $18 million. Want me to dig deeper? I stared at that text. $12 to $18 million. From my company. I typed back. Dig deeper. Everything. And David? Look into Brandon Cole's dating history. Every girlfriend before Stephanie. Interesting. I'll have preliminary by tomorrow evening. I turned off my phone and stood at my window watching dawn break over Biscayne Bay. Richard and Brandon thought they'd won. They didn't know that the quiet woman who never worked owned the very ground they stood on. And they were about to find out. At 8:30 Friday morning, I walked into Miami-Dade Police Station. I dressed carefully. Navy Street, John suit, pearl earrings, the costume that said respectable older woman rather than CEO worth $50 million. I'm looking for Detective James Rodriguez. James appeared 2 minutes later. We'd worked together on a community task force after Hurricane Irma. He was honest, rare in Miami law enforcement. Mrs. Mitchell, what brings you here? A favor, James. I explained about Stephanie. He pulled up his laptop. 2 reports filed yesterday. First, 3:18 p.m. by Richard Cole. Alleges embezzlement of $280,000. Second, 5:03 p.m. by Brandon Cole. Alleges theft of family heirlooms valued at $150,000. Both filed within 2 hours, I said, against the same person, by the same family. Coordinated, James agreed. Eleanor, these are felony charges, 7 to 10 years if they stick. I have Christine Wells. Good. He paused. Is there something else going on? If I find evidence of false reporting, you'll be the first to know. An hour later, I met David at a coffee shop in Wynwood. He slid a manila folder across the table. Jennifer Lawson, age 30, graphic designer, Brandon's girlfriend from September 2019 to March 2020. A photograph showed a pretty black woman with natural hair and a bright smile. She filed a police report in March 2020, David continued. Financial abuse, theft of $85,000. Brandon's lawyer threatened a countersuit. She withdrew the complaint. Contact information? I have it, but there's more. He showed me doorbell camera footage from April 2023. Brandon kneeling on a porch. Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I've been in therapy. Real therapy. I've changed. I love you. Please forgive me. He came back 2 months after she left him, David said. With a script. He pulled out another document. And this is Brandon's therapy intake form from November 2024. Last month. 3 weeks before he kicked Stephanie out. The form listed relationship difficulties following wife's betrayal. Need tools to rebuild trust. He set up the narrative ahead of time, I said slowly. Exactly. And there are 2 more women, both dated Brandon 4 to 6 months between 2016 and 2019. Total losses, $168,000. Neither filed reports. He has a system. Not just him. Richard has the same pattern. 3 female business partners over 20 years. All left bankrupt while Richard walked away with assets. I sat back. Find Jennifer Lawson. I need to talk to her. Already done. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Panther Coffee. That evening at 6:47, Stephanie's phone rang. We were in my living room. Maya was upstairs watching Frozen. Christine had left after filing emergency motions. Stephanie looked at the screen. Her hand shook. It's Brandon. Put it on speaker. Record it. She answered. Stephanie. Brandon's voice was smooth. I hope you've had time to think about your situation. About Maya's future. Think about what, Brandon? I'm calling with a solution. My father will drop the embezzlement charges. All of them. Everything disappears. In exchange for what? For being reasonable. The Brickell condo at 1000 Brickell Plaza, Unit 2804, valued at $3.6 million. Your mother owns it. Transfer it to me and this goes away. You can see Maya on weekends. Supervised visitation. The air felt thick. And if she doesn't? Stephanie asked quietly. Then I file for sole custody. I disappear with Maya somewhere your mother's money can't reach. Europe. Asia. His voice turned cruel. Your mother might own half of Miami, but women like her, like you, never really own anything that matters. Your bloodline, your mother's people, wherever they came from before your great-great-grandparents were slaves, that's not the legacy I want. The phone went dead. Stephanie walked to the window, arms wrapped around herself. He was always going to do this, even if I'd been perfect. Yes, I said, he was. Because of our skin. Partly, and partly because men like him have learned they can get away with it. Stephanie turned. Her eyes were red but clear. What do we do? I opened my laptop and set it on the coffee table. Stephanie, what I'm about to show you, I need you to understand why I kept this secret. I turned the screen toward her. Incorporation documents. Southeastern Logistics, LLC. She read the ownership structure. Her eyes widened. Apex Holdings, LLC. 73% ownership. Richard Cole, 27% ownership. Mom, you own Richard's company? I founded Southeastern Logistics in 1998 with 1 truck, but every bank said no. Every client said no. Because I was a black woman in a white man's industry. I showed her photos from the early days. Me at 28 beside that first truck. So I found Richard Cole, a mediocre white man with an MBA. I offered him 27% equity and the CEO title. I provide the capital and strategy. He provides the white face that clients would trust. I stayed hidden. For 15 years? 27 years total. The company grew from 1 truck to 200. From $1 million to $50 million in annual revenue. I built everything. Richard got the credit. I pulled up bank statements, transaction histories. For 8 years, Richard's been embezzling. $18.7 million so far, building his own empire with my money. And Brandon? Brandon learned from his father. Find ambitious women, destroy them, take everything. It's the family business. I showed her the files on Jennifer, on the other women, on Richard's previous partners. This isn't about you being imperfect. This is about predators who know the system protects them. Stephanie wiped her eyes. Then we stop them. Yes, with evidence, with documentation, with the same systematic approach they used. She nodded. What do we do first? First, you sleep. Spend tomorrow with Maya. Let her think the world is safe. And you? I make calls, I gather pieces, and I prepare to take back what's mine. Mom, do you really own a Brickell condo? I smiled. It wasn't kind. No, Brandon made that up. But you know what I do own? The land under Richard's Coral Gables mansion, through Zenith Development Corporation. Richard has a lease. It expires in 2 months. There's an early termination clause for tenant bad faith. Understanding dawned in her eyes. And filing false police reports would be bad faith. It would indeed. My phone buzzed. David. Found Jennifer. She'll meet tomorrow. And Eleanor? I found 2 more women. The Coles have been running this con for over a decade. I showed Stephanie the text. How many women? She asked. At least 5 that we know of. Probably more. She put her arms around me. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I thought I could fix it. Shh. None of this is your fault. You can't fix a man who's broken on purpose. I stepped back, looked her in the eyes. Tomorrow, Jennifer. Then Monday we dismantle everything they built. And Maya? Maya stays safe. That's the priority. Above everything, even above justice. Stephanie started to leave, then turned back. Mom, why reveal all this now? You could have kept it secret forever. I looked at my daughter. Because they came for my family. Richard could steal my money. I could let that go. Brandon could humiliate me. I could let that go. But the moment they put you and my granddaughter on that park bench, the moment they tried to destroy you to cover their crimes, I let the steal show. The steal I'd hidden for 27 years. Nobody touches my family. Nobody. Saturday morning, November 16th, 9 a.m. sharp. My dining room table was covered in documents. Bank statements, corporate filings, police reports, photographs. Christine Wells sat to my right, legal pad already half filled with notes. David Thompson sat across from us, his laptop open. Detective Rodriguez stood by the window, off duty, officially not here, but his presence meant everything. Stephanie was upstairs with Maya, making pancakes and pretending the world was normal. Let's inventory what we have, Christine said, all business. David? David pulled up a spreadsheet on his laptop, turned it so we could all see. Richard Cole has been embezzling from Southeastern Logistics for 8 years, 3 months. Total confirmed, $18.7 million. He's routing money through 3 subsidiary companies, Gulf Coast Shipping, LLC, Meridian Freight Services, and Coastal Transport Holdings, all registered in Delaware, all secretly owned by Richard and his brother, Gregory Cole. Brother? I'd never heard Richard mention a brother. Tax attorney in Boston. He structured all the shell companies. David clicked to another screen. Gregory Cole, age 56, specializes in offshore accounts and asset protection. He's been helping Richard hide money since 2016. Christine made notes. That's conspiracy. Federal charges. It gets worse, David continued. Brandon Cole has targeted 5 women over the past 8 years. Total financial damage, $428,000. He pulled up photos. 5 women, all black, all professional, all around Stephanie's age. Jennifer Lawson, 2019 to 2020, lost $85,000. Keisha Williams, 2018 to 2019, lost $52,000. Tamara Johnson, 2016 to 2017, lost $48,000. Nicole Green, 2020 to 2021, lost $73,000. And Stephanie Harrison, 2021 to present, estimated losses, $170,000 plus. The room was silent. Rodriguez spoke from the window. That's a pattern. Federal statute for systematic fraud. But Eleanor, if we move now, Brandon grabs Maya and runs. We need something that immobilizes him immediately. What about the forged loans? Stephanie had appeared in the doorway, Maya's laughter floating down from upstairs. The $1.4 million in my name? Christine nodded. Forgery, identity theft, wire fraud, but proving Brandon did it versus Richard, that's the challenge. They're careful. No paper trail connecting them directly to the forgeries. What if we get them to confess? I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. Eleanor, you can't just walk in and ask them to admit, Christine started. No, but I can make Richard think he's won. Make him comfortable enough to talk. I stood, walked to the window beside Rodriguez. Richard thinks I'm a ghost, a silent partner who never interferes. What if I go to him? What if I offer to make this go away? That's dangerous, Rodriguez said. So is doing nothing while they plan their next move. I turned back to the table. David, you said you can get me a wire? I can. But Eleanor, if Richard suspects, he won't, because for 15 years I've played the role perfectly. The quiet woman who never challenges, who never makes waves. I felt steel settling in my spine. One more performance. That's all I need. Christine studied me. Dean, what's your play? I go to Richard's office Monday morning. Tell him Stephanie confessed to me about the embezzlement. Tell him I'm willing to cover the losses if he drops the charges and lets her see Maya. Make myself the victim, the mother who just wants her daughter back. And while he's gloating, David asked, he tells me everything, because men like Richard can't resist explaining how clever they are, especially to women they think are powerless. Stephanie crossed to me. Mom, no. If he realizes you're recording, he won't, because I'm 63 years old. I'm black. I'm a woman. I've been invisible to him for 15 years. I took her hands. Baby, this is what I do. I've been underestimated my entire life. It's time to use that. Christine tapped her pen against her legal pad. If you get a confession, we can move immediately. Freeze assets, emergency custody order, arrest warrants. But Eleanor, you get one shot. If Richard suspects anything, he and Brandon will disappear with everything they've taken. Then I better not miss. At 2 p.m., I walked into Panther Coffee in Wynwood. Jennifer Lawson sat in the back corner, exactly where David said she'd be. She looked different from her LinkedIn photo. Thinner, more guarded, her natural hair pulled back in a tight bun. When she saw me, recognition flickered in her eyes. Mrs. Mitchell? Eleanor, please. I sat across from her. Thank you for meeting me. David said it was about Brandon. Her voice was careful. I'm not sure what I can tell you that would help. Everything. I need to know everything. She studied me for a long moment. Then she started talking. I met Brandon in September 2019 at an art gallery opening in the Design District. He was charming, attentive, said he'd never met anyone like me. She gave a bitter laugh. Classic, right? But I believed him. What happened? We dated for 2 months before he asked me to move in. Said his condo was empty without me. Made it feel romantic. She traced patterns on her coffee cup. That's when it started. Small things first. Comments about my work. Was I sure that design was good enough? Questions about my friends. Did they really have my best interests at heart? He convinced me to quit my job. Said he'd support me while I built my freelance business. I listened, watching Stephanie's story play out through Jennifer's words. Then the financial control. He managed our accounts, paid all the bills, said I should focus on my art, not stress about money. I thought he was being supportive. Her jaw tightened. By month 4, I had no access to my own accounts. He'd moved everything to joint accounts, then slowly transferred it all out. When I finally checked, my $85,000 in savings was gone. What did he say when you confronted him? That I'd given him permission, that I was remembering things wrong, that I was stressed and paranoid. She looked up at me. He had documentation, Mrs. Mitchell, signed forms saying I'd authorized the transfers. My signature, except I never signed anything. Forgeries. I couldn't prove it. His father got involved, threatened legal action if I pursued it. Said Brandon would sue me for defamation. I was broke, scared, alone. So I withdrew the police report and moved on. She paused. Or tried to. Can I show you something? I pulled out my phone, opened to a photo of Stephanie. This is my daughter. Brandon married her in 2021. 2 years after you." Jennifer's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, God. He did it again. To at least 4 other women that we know of. Stephanie is number 5. And your granddaughter is being used as leverage. Brandon's threatening to disappear with her if we don't give him what he wants." Jennifer's expression hardened. "What do you need from me?" "Your story, your testimony, your willingness to stand up in court and show the pattern." "I'll do it, whatever you need." She leaned forward. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've been carrying this shame for 4 years, thinking it was my fault, thinking I was the only one stupid enough to fall for it. If I can help stop him—" "You already have. You're helping me save my daughter and my granddaughter." She reached across the table, took my hand. "There's something else. Something I never told the police." "What?" "I recorded him, one conversation. After I'd withdrawn the report, he came to my apartment drunk, bragging." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through files. "I was wearing wireless earbuds that record. I kept it because, I don't know. I needed proof I wasn't crazy." She pressed play. Brandon's voice came through, slurred but clear. "You should thank me, Jennifer. I taught you a valuable lesson. Women like you, your practice, your training wheels. My father taught me. Find ambitious black women, let them think they're winning, then take everything. They never suspect because they're so grateful someone like me even looked at them." I felt my hands clench. The recording continued. "Stephanie's next. My father already set up the accounts. Bigger target this time. Her mother has real money hidden somewhere. We just need to figure out where. Give it 2 years, maybe 3. Then Stephanie's out, we liquidate, and I find the next one." "When was this recorded?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "April 2023. 18 months ago." Jennifer's eyes were wet. "I've lived with that recording, knowing he was planning to do it again. But I was too scared to come forward. Too ashamed. May I have a copy? I'll send it to you now. And Mrs. Mitchell, destroy him, please." That evening, David came to my house with a new file. This one was marked urgent in red. Stephanie was putting Maya to bed. I sat in my office, the lamp casting long shadows. "Eleanor, we need to talk about Gregory Cole, Richard's brother, the tax attorney." "It's more than that." David opened his laptop. "Gregory Cole isn't just helping with shell companies. He's the architect. This whole scheme, it's been planned since 1998. I felt cold. "That's when I brought Richard into Southeastern Logistics." "Exactly." David pulled up incorporation documents. "Look at the dates. Southeastern Logistics Incorporated, August 1998. Your agreement gives Richard 27% equity. But look at this." He showed me another document. "Cole Enterprises, LLC, Incorporated, September 1998. 1 month later. Owned by Richard and Gregory, registered in Delaware." "I don't understand." "Richard never intended to be your partner, Eleanor. From day one, he was building his own competing company using your contracts, your clients, your infrastructure. Cole Enterprises has been operating parallel to Southeastern for 26 years. The room tilted slightly. "How?" "Every contract you signed? Richard created a duplicate contract through Cole Enterprises for a smaller amount. The client pays Southeastern. Richard routes part of the payment through Cole Enterprises as a subcontractor fee. The money disappears into offshore accounts." David showed me spreadsheets. Conservative estimate, $47 million over 26 years. $47 million. I'd built an empire. Richard had built a second empire by stealing mine. "And Brandon?" My voice sounded hollow. "Brandon's been training since 2016. 8 years of targeting women, refining the technique. Eleanor, this isn't opportunistic fraud. This is a family business. Gregory structures it. Richard executes it. Brandon handles the personal cons. They've done this to at least 12 women across multiple states." 12? David nodded grimly. "We found 7 more. Different cities. Boston, Atlanta, Houston. Same pattern. All black women, all professional, all financially stable. Total damages across all victims, $1.3 million plus." I stood, walked to the window. My reflection stared back. A 63-year-old woman who'd spent 26 years thinking she was protecting herself by staying hidden. "I gave him everything," I said quietly. "I made Richard somebody. I gave him respect, wealth, opportunity. I thought, my voice cracked. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I was smart enough, if I stayed invisible enough, I could succeed anyway. That the racism wouldn't matter if I just found the right white man to front for me. Eleanor, I was wrong. The racism didn't matter because Richard was always planning to steal everything regardless. I wasn't a partner to him. I was a mark. David stood. You were a brilliant businesswoman who navigated an impossible system. Richard is a predator who exploited your trust. Those aren't the same thing. I turned from the window. Does Christine know? I sent her everything an hour ago. She's filing emergency motions Monday morning. But Eleanor, once we move, Richard and Gregory will know you've been investigating. They'll try to move the money, destroy evidence. Let them try. I felt something hardening in my chest. I've spent 26 years being careful, being quiet, being invisible. I'm done with that. I found Stephanie in Maya's room, watching her daughter sleep. She looks like you did at that age, I said softly from the doorway. Stephanie smiled. She has your stubborn chin. That's not stubbornness, that's determination. I sat on the edge of Maya's bed. Can we talk? About Monday? Your plan with Richard? About what comes after. I took a breath. Stephanie, there's something I need to tell you about Southeastern Logistics, about what I'm going to do. I told her everything. The full 26 years, the $47 million, the systematic theft, the parallel company, Gregory's involvement, and then I told her my decision. I'm shutting it down, I said. Southeastern Logistics. I'm dissolving the company. Stephanie stared at me. But Mom, that's your life's work. It's a shell. It was always a shell. I built something beautiful, and Richard hollowed it out and filled it with lies. I looked at Maya, sleeping peacefully. I'm 63 years old. I spent 26 years hiding, pretending, letting Richard take credit for my work because I was too afraid to claim it publicly. You weren't afraid. You were surviving in a racist system. Maybe, but surviving isn't living, baby. And I don't want Maya growing up learning that we have to hide our power, that we have to let mediocre men take credit for our brilliance. I took Stephanie's hand. So I'm dissolving Southeastern, taking every asset, every contract, every truck, and I'm rebuilding under a new name, publicly, with my name on every document. What about Richard? Richard gets nothing. His 27% of a dissolved company is worth nothing. The operating agreement I wrote is clear. I have the right to liquidate at any time. He can't stop me. He'll fight you. Let him fight. I'll be fighting from the light this time, not the shadows. Stephanie's eyes filled with tears. I'm so proud of you, Mom. Don't be proud yet. Wait until I survive Monday. Monday morning, November 18th, 8:47 a.m. I wore a simple navy dress, pearl earrings, sensible shoes. The costume of an older woman coming to beg. Under my jacket, David had placed a recording device so small I couldn't even feel it. Christine and David were in a van 2 blocks away, listening through headphones. Rodriguez was on standby. Stephanie was home with Maya, her phone set to emergency dial. I walked into Southeastern Logistics, my building, though no one knew it, and took the elevator to the top floor. Richard's assistant looked surprised. Mrs. Mitchell, do you have an appointment? No, but I'm sure Richard can spare a few minutes for his partner's widow. I smiled softly, harmless, forgettable. She made a call. 2 minutes later, I was shown into Richard's corner office. He stood behind his massive desk, mahogany, probably $20,000. Everything in this office had been paid for with my money, my contracts, my work. Eleanor, this is unexpected. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced, Richard, but we need to talk about Stephanie. His expression shifted, cautious. I'm not sure what there is to discuss. The charges have been filed. I know. I've seen the police reports. Both of them. I sat down without being invited, clutched my purse in my lap. Richard, I need you to understand. I'm a mother first. Everything else comes second. He relaxed slightly, sat down. I understand that, but embezzlement is serious. I know Stephanie took the money. The lie tasted bitter. Richard's eyebrows rose. She confessed? Not in so many words, but I've been going through her things. I found documents, transfers. She's been gambling, Richard. Online poker. She has a problem. I let my voice crack. I should have seen it sooner. Richard leaned back in his chair. A small smile played at his lips. I see. I want to make this right. The $280,000. I can cover it. I have some savings from Charles's life insurance. I can write you a check today if you'll drop the charges. Eleanor, it's not that simple. There are legal processes. Please, Richard. She's my daughter, my only child. And Maya. I pulled out a tissue, dabbed at my eyes. Maya needs her mother. Can't we settle this privately? I'll pay everything back plus interest. You'll have your money. Stephanie can get help for her gambling. Brandon can have full custody. I just want supervised visitation for Stephanie. That's all. Richard stood, walked to the window, his back to me. You know, Eleanor, Charles talked about you before he died. His voice was contemplative. He said you were too proud, that you thought you were smarter than everyone else, that your people, his words, had gotten above themselves. I felt my jaw tighten, kept my voice soft. Charles said many things toward the end. He was right, though, wasn't he? You did think you were special, thought you could build something real. Richard turned around. But look at what happened. Your daughter's a thief and a gambling addict. You're sitting here begging me, begging to help clean up her mess. Where's all that pride now, Eleanor? Gone, I whispered. I just want my family safe. Richard crossed to his desk, pulled out a folder. The thing is, Eleanor, I don't need your money. Do you know why? Why? Because I've already taken it, all of it, for 26 years. He smiled. It wasn't kind. Every contract you negotiated, I skimmed 15%. Every client you brought in, I routed them through my company. Every brilliant strategy you developed, I implemented it twice. Once for Southeastern, once for Coal Enterprises. My heart pounded. I don't understand. Of course you don't. You're just the secretary, remember? Charles's wife who answered phones. He leaned against his desk. Here's the truth, Eleanor. You never owned Southeastern. Not really. You might have some papers saying you do, but in the real world, the world that matters, this company is mine. I built it. My contacts, my strategy, my white face that actually gets things done. But the operating agreement means nothing. Who's going to enforce it? You? A 63-year-old black woman with no business experience trying to claim she secretly owned a $50 million company? He laughed. Try it. Go ahead. I'll bury you in legal fees. I'll tie you up in court for 20 years. And by the time you're done fighting me, every penny you have will be gone. What about Stephanie? Stephanie was practice for Brandon. I taught my son everything. Find ambitious black women, promise them the world, take everything they have. It's almost too easy. They're so grateful someone like us even notices them. Richard crossed his arms. Brandon's done it 5 times now, each one better than the last. Stephanie? She was the masterpiece. Nearly $2 million when you count the forged loans and the Cayman accounts. $2 million, more than David had found. And Maya? Leverage. Brandon will keep her until you hand over every asset you have. Then he'll disappear anyway. Maybe Europe, maybe Australia, somewhere you can't touch them. Richard smiled. You people, you always think you can compete. That if you just work hard enough, we'll accept you as equals. But Eleanor, you're not equal. You never were. And spending 26 years pretending to be my partner doesn't change that. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. I stood slowly, adjusted my purse. You're wrong about one thing, Richard. What's that? I opened my jacket, showed him the recording device. I stopped pretending a long time ago. His face went white. Everything you just said? It's being recorded. It's being heard by my attorney, my private investigator, and a detective with Miami-Dade Police Department. The confession about embezzling from me for 26 years. The admission of systematic fraud, the racial harassment, the confession about Brandon's pattern of abuse. All of it. Richard lunged for his phone. I was faster. Don't bother. Your accounts are frozen as of 8 a.m. this morning. Emergency order signed by Judge Morrison. Your assets, all $47 million you stole from me, are being seized. And Brandon? I smiled. It wasn't kind either. He's being arrested right now for conspiracy to commit fraud, extortion, and custodial interference. My granddaughter is safe. The office door opened. Detective Rodriguez entered with 2 uniformed officers. Richard Cole, you're under arrest for embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud, racketeering, and criminal harassment. You have the right to remain silent. As they cuffed him, Richard looked at me with pure hatred. You'll never win. I'll fight this. I'll destroy you. No, Richard, you won't, because I'm not hiding anymore. I picked up my purse. You were right about one thing. I did think I had to pretend to be less than I was to survive, but I don't. Not anymore. Rodriguez led him away. I stood alone in that office, my office, and let myself breathe. It was over. 2 weeks later, December 2nd, 2024, the federal courthouse in downtown Miami was packed. I sat in the gallery between Christine and Stephanie. Maya was with Rosa at home, drawing pictures and eating animal crackers, blissfully unaware that her father was about to be sentenced. The media filled the back rows. This case had made headlines. Secret CEO exposes partner's 26-year fraud. Black woman business owner reclaims stolen empire. Local news, national outlets, even the Wall Street Journal had called for comment. I'd declined all interviews. The evidence would speak for itself. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a black woman in her late 50s with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. We all stood. Please be seated. Her voice carried authority earned over 30 years on the bench. The United States of America versus Richard Allen Cole and Brandon James Cole. Richard and Brandon sat at the defense table in orange jumpsuits. Richard's expensive suits were gone. His confident posture was gone. He looked like what he was, a 58-year-old man facing the end of everything. Brandon stared at the table. He hadn't looked at Stephanie once. Mr. Cole and Mr. Cole, Judge Morrison began, you've been found guilty on multiple counts following a 3-day trial. Before I proceed with sentencing, this court will hear victim impact statements. Christine stood. Your Honor, the prosecution calls Jennifer Lawson. Jennifer walked to the witness stand. She wore a navy dress, her natural hair in a crown of braids. She looked strong, whole. Ms. Lawson, please tell the court how Brandon Cole's actions affected your life. Jennifer took a breath. In 2019, I met Brandon Cole. Within 6 months, I'd lost $85,000, my apartment, my sense of reality. He convinced me I was crazy, that I was remembering things wrong, that my friends and family were toxic. When I finally escaped, I spent 2 years in therapy learning to trust my own mind again. She looked directly at Brandon. I thought I was alone, that I was the only one stupid enough to fall for it. Now I know there were at least 11 other women. 11 of us he targeted, isolated, and robbed. Your Honor, Brandon Cole doesn't just steal money. He steals women's sense of self, their ability to trust, their futures. Thank you, Ms. Lawson. Judge Morrison made a note. Next witness. The prosecution calls Stephanie Harrison. My daughter stood. I reached out, squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. At the witness stand, Stephanie looked small but steady. She didn't look at Brandon. Mrs. Harrison, please tell the court about your experience. I married Brandon Cole in June 2021. We had a daughter, Maya, in 2022. I thought I was building a family. Her voice was clear, strong. For 3 years, Brandon systematically undermined my confidence. He criticized my appearance, my heritage, my mother's family. He took out $1.4 million in loans using forged signatures. He convinced me I was lucky he'd married me at all. She paused. Last month, he kicked me and our daughter out with 3 suitcases. We sat on a park bench, not knowing where to go. His father had fired me that same day on false embezzlement charges. They coordinated it. They planned it. They were going to take everything, including my daughter. Now she looked at Brandon. I want the court to know. The cruelest thing wasn't the money. It was making me believe I deserved it. That my bloodline, my family, my mother's people, that we weren't good enough, that we should be grateful for whatever scraps we got. Her voice hardened. But my mother built a $50 million company from 1 truck and a dream. My grandmother raised 7 children while working 2 jobs. My great-grandmother survived things I can't even imagine. I come from strength, Your Honor. And Brandon Cole couldn't steal that, no matter how hard he tried. The courtroom was silent. Thank you, Mrs. Harrison. Judge Morrison looked at her notes, then at the defense table. Mr. Richard Cole, Mr. Brandon Cole, Please stand. They stood. This case represents more than financial fraud. It represents systematic exploitation of power imbalances, racial dynamics, and gender bias. You didn't just commit crimes. You built a system designed to target and destroy accomplished Black women. She looked at Richard. Mr. Richard Cole, you exploited your business partner for 26 years. You stole $47 million from a woman who trusted you, who gave you opportunity, who made you successful. And you repaid that trust by building a criminal enterprise designed to hollow out everything she built. Judge Morrison's voice could have cut glass. On charges of embezzlement, wire fraud, money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy, I sentence you to 22 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. You are ordered to pay $47 million in restitution to Eleanor Mitchell, plus $500,000 in punitive damages. Richard swayed slightly. His attorney caught his arm. Judge Morrison turned to Brandon. Mr. Brandon Cole, you learned from your father and perfected his methods. You targeted at least 11 women over 8 years. You stole their savings, their confidence, their futures. You used your own daughter as leverage to extort money from victims. She leaned forward. You told Mrs. Harrison that her bloodline wasn't worthy of your family name. Let me be clear. The problem was never her bloodline. The problem was yours. A family that taught you that cruelty and theft were acceptable if the victims were Black women who should be grateful for your attention. On charges of systematic fraud, identity theft, extortion, conspiracy, and attempted custodial interference, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison. You are ordered to pay $2.1 million in restitution divided among your victims. Additionally, you are permanently stripped of all parental rights to Maya Harrison. You will have no contact with the child, now or ever. Brandon's head dropped. For the first time, I saw something that might have been shame. Bailiff, remove the defendants. As officers led them away, Richard looked back at me one last time. I met his gaze, didn't look away. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mrs. Mitchell, how does it feel to finally claim your company publicly? Mrs. Mitchell, what's next for Southeastern Logistics? Mrs. Mitchell, do you have a message for other women business owners? Christine stepped forward. Mrs. Mitchell will not be taking questions today. Thank you. But I put my hand on her arm. Actually, I'd like to say something. The cameras focused on me, microphones pushed closer. For 26 years, I hid my success. I let a white man take credit for my work because I believed that was the only way to survive in this industry. I was wrong. Not about the racism, that's real, but about hiding being the only option. I looked directly at the cameras. To every woman who's been told to make herself smaller, to stay quiet, to let someone else take credit, to be grateful for scraps. You don't have to, not anymore. Claim your work, use your voice, build your empire and put your name on it. What about Southeastern Logistics? A reporter called out. I'm dissolving it. The company is being liquidated and I'm rebuilding under a new name. Mitchell Logistics Group. My name, my company. No more hiding. 1 month later, January 15th, 2025. The conference room at Mitchell Logistics Group smelled like new carpet and fresh paint. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Biscayne Bay. The desk nameplate outside read, Eleanor Mitchell, founder and chair. I'd called a board meeting. Christine sat to my right. Thomas Wright, who'd been my loyal COO for 5 years, sat across from us. And at the far end of the table, looking nervous in her charcoal suit, sat Stephanie. Thank you all for coming, I began. We're here to discuss leadership structure for Mitchell Logistics going forward. Thomas pulled up a presentation. We've retained 89% of Southeastern's contracts. Clients are actually more confident now that ownership is transparent. Revenue projections for year one, $52 million. That's excellent, Thomas. I took a breath. Which brings me to my announcement. Effective March 1st, I'm stepping down as CEO. Stephanie's head snapped up. Mom, what? I'll remain majority shareholder and board chair, but operational CEO? I looked at each of them. That requires someone who can take this company into the next generation. Someone who understands both the business and the cost of staying silent when you should speak up. I slid a folder across the table to Stephanie. Someone like you. She opened it. Her eyes widened. Mom, I can't. I'm not ready. Neither was I when I started with one truck at 28 years old. But you have something I didn't have. You have support. You have a team. You have a foundation that won't crumble if you take one wrong step. Thomas spoke up. Actually, Eleanor, the board met yesterday. We were going to propose this same thing. Stephanie's financial acumen is exceptional. Her strategic thinking is sharp. And her public story, surviving what she survived, makes her a powerful voice for the company. Stephanie looked at me. You knew about this? No, but I'm not surprised. I smiled. Sweetheart, you've spent 3 years being told you weren't good enough, that you didn't deserve your position, that you only got where you were through me. But that was never true. You earned your MBA from Wharton. You built financial systems that increased Southeastern's efficiency by 32%. You negotiated contracts that saved millions. Christine added, and now you represent something important. A Black woman who survived systematic abuse and came back stronger. That matters. Clients want to work with you specifically. Stephanie's hands trembled on the folder. What if I fail? Then you fail and we adjust. That's called business. I leaned forward. But Stephanie, I didn't survive 26 years of hiding, didn't expose Richard and Brandon, didn't rebuild this entire company just so you could doubt yourself. I did it so you could lead without hiding, so Maya could grow up seeing her mother claim her power publicly. Mom, her voice broke. I'm 63 years old. I spent most of my life believing I had to control everything to protect it, that I couldn't trust anyone else to carry what I'd built. I looked around the table. But real power isn't holding on. It's building something strong enough to exist without you. The room was quiet. Finally, Stephanie nodded. Okay, yes, I'll do it. Thomas smiled. Welcome aboard, CEO Harrison. After the meeting, Stephanie stayed behind. Are you sure about this, Mom? Stepping down? I walked to the window, looked out at the bay. I've been CEO for 26 years, built an empire, made millions. And you know what I realized sitting on that park bench with you and Maya? None of it mattered compared to keeping you safe. But you love this company. I do, which is why I'm trusting you with it. Because love means letting go when it's time. I turned to her. Besides, I have other plans. Like what? Like spending time with my granddaughter. Like traveling somewhere other than client meetings. Like maybe even dating again. I smiled. Like figuring out who Eleanor Mitchell is when she's not hiding. Stephanie hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Now go be great. 6 months later, June 15th, 2025, Jennifer Lawson's nonprofit, United Support for Survivors, occupied a renovated warehouse in Wynwood. The grand opening had drawn over 200 people, local politicians, business owners, survivors, supporters. I stood in the back watching Jennifer cut the ribbon. She looked radiant in a blue dress, her smile genuine. Stephanie stood beside her holding Maya, who was fascinated by all the balloons. This center exists because too many women suffer in silence, Jennifer said to the crowd, because abusers rely on isolation, on shame, on victims believing they're alone. She looked directly at me. I'm standing here today because I wasn't alone. Because women like Eleanor Mitchell and Stephanie Harrison refused to let me stay silent. Because they fought not just for justice, but for all of us. The crowd applauded. Inside the center, I walked through rooms set up for counseling, legal aid, financial planning. A whole wall was covered with resources, hotline numbers, shelter information, employment services. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Stephanie appeared beside me with Maya. It really is. I crouched down to Maya's level. You know what this place is, sweetheart? A helping place, Maya said seriously. For people who are sad. That's right. It helps people stop being sad and start being strong again. Maya nodded, satisfied with this explanation, then ran off to look at the art on the walls. Stephanie and I stood together, watching her. She doesn't remember much about Brandon anymore, Stephanie said quietly. Sometimes she asks about him, but mostly, she's just happy. That's good. She deserves to just be a kid. The therapist says she's resilient, that kids bounce back if they have stability and love. Stephanie paused. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you regret it? Any of it? Hiding for so long? Letting Richard take credit? I thought about it carefully. I regret that I felt I had to. I regret that the world made me believe hiding was my only option. But I don't regret surviving. I don't regret building something, even in the shadows, because that's what got us here. To you being CEO, to Maya growing up in a different world, to this center existing. But you lost 26 years. I didn't lose them. I spent them learning, building, preparing. I looked at her. Every person I've met, every contract I negotiated, every crisis I solved, those weren't wasted years. They were the foundation that let me fight back when it mattered most. Jennifer joined us. Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for the donation. The $500,000 from the Blackwell Foundation, it's transformational. It's the least I could do. And please, it's Eleanor. Eleanor, she smiled. I got my first success story yesterday. A woman called from Hialeah. She'd seen the news coverage about our case, recognized the pattern in her own marriage. She left him. She's safe now at one of our partner shelters. That's what this was all for, I said. Not revenge, protection, making sure it stops. Stephanie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. The board wants to know if you're coming to the quarterly meeting next week. Tell them yes. I'm still chair. I still care about the company. I smiled. I just don't need to run every detail anymore. How does that feel? Letting go? Terrifying. Liberating. Both. I watched Maya dance to music someone had put on. Mostly right. Late afternoon, the same day, I drove to Bayfront Park alone, parked near the marina, walked to the bench where I'd found Stephanie and Maya 6 months ago. The same weathered wood, the same view of the bay, but everything was different. I sat down, let the sun warm my face, pulled out my phone and scrolled through photos. Stephanie at her first board meeting as CEO, Maya's kindergarten graduation, Jennifer at the center's opening, me and Christine having lunch, laughing about something I couldn't even remember now. A good life, visible, claimed, mine. Grandma! I looked up. Stephanie and Maya were walking toward me down the path. Stephanie carried a small bag. What are you two doing here? We saw your car, Stephanie said. Thought you might want company. Maya climbed onto the bench beside me. Mama said this is where you found us. It is. Were you sad? I was very sad, and very angry, and very determined to fix things. Did you fix them? I looked at Stephanie, who was smiling. Yeah, baby, I think I did. Maya reached into the bag Stephanie carried and pulled out a small object. Look what I found at the beach yesterday. A shell, white, spiral, with a crack running through one side. It's beautiful, I said. But it's broken, Maya pointed out, tracing the crack with one finger. It is, but you know what? The best things survive cracks. They don't disappear. They just become more interesting. I turned the shell in the light. This shell survived storms, waves, being thrown against rocks, and it's still here. Still beautiful. Maybe more beautiful because of what it survived. Like you and Mama? I felt my throat tighten. Exactly like me and Mama. Stephanie sat down on my other side. The three of us on the bench, 3 generations, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Mom, the Wall Street Journal wants to do a feature. America's Invisible CEOs, Women Who Built Empires in the Shadows. They want to interview you. Are you doing it? Only if you do it with me. I thought about it. A year ago, I would have said no, would have hidden, protected myself, stayed invisible. Okay, let's do it. Really? Really. It's time people knew the truth, not just about Richard and Brandon, about all of us, all the women who built things in secret because that was the only way we could build it all. Maya held up the shell again. Can I keep this, Grandma? Of course. It's my favorite, because it's strong even though it's broken. Stephanie and I exchanged a look. You know what, Maya? I said. I think you're exactly right. Strong doesn't mean perfect. It means surviving. It means breaking and still being here. We sat there as the sun set, painting the bay in shades of gold and orange and pink. The same bench where this story started. But everything was different now. Stephanie was CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. Maya was safe, loved, thriving. Jennifer and 10 other women were rebuilding their lives. Richard and Brandon were in federal prison. And me? I was Eleanor Mitchell, 63 years old, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be less than I was, just free. Grandma? Maya asked sleepily, leaning against my shoulder. Yes, baby? When I grow up, can I be like you? I kissed the top of her head. When you grow up, you can be exactly like yourself. That's all you ever need to be. As the last light faded from the sky, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from Christine. Richard's appeal was denied. 22 years confirmed. It's really over, Eleanor. You won. I looked at that message for a long moment. Then I typed back. We all won. Everyone who survives wins. That's the secret they never want us to know. I put my phone away, wrapped one arm around Stephanie, the other around Maya. Ready to go home? Stephanie asked. Yeah, I said. Let's go home. We stood, the three of us, the shell safe in Maya's pocket, the sunset behind us, the future ahead. I'd spent 26 years building an empire in the shadows, letting someone else take credit, hiding my power to survive. And then I'd spent 6 months tearing it all down and rebuilding it in the light, with my name, my voice, my truth. Was it worth it? The hiding, the sacrifice, the years of silence? I looked at my daughter, strong, confident, claiming her power. At my granddaughter, innocent, protected, growing up in a world where she'd never have to hide. Yeah, it was worth it. Not because hiding was right, but because surviving led to this, to freedom, to truth, to 3 generations of Black women standing in the light, unashamed, unafraid, unbowed. That's the real empire I built. Not money, not companies, not revenge. Family, truth, freedom, and nobody could ever take that away. 1 year later, November 15th, 2025. The park bench has a plaque now. Small, bronze, easy to miss if you're not looking for it. In memory of all the women who survived, you are not alone, you never were. United, support for survivors. Jennifer arranged it. Said every survivor who comes to the center asks about the bench, about the story, about Eleanor and Stephanie. Mitchell Logistics Group just signed its largest contract, $12 million with a Fortune 500 company. Stephanie negotiated it herself. When they asked to meet with the CEO, she walked into that boardroom with her head high and her name on every document. They never questioned her authority once. Maya started first grade. When they asked what her mom does, she said, "She runs a company and helps people move things, just like my grandma did. Not just like Grandma's boss did. Like Grandma did, that's victory. As for me, I spend my mornings having coffee on my porch, my afternoons volunteering at Jennifer's center, my evenings with my family. Last week, a young woman came to the center, 26 years old, just escaped an abusive relationship. Lost everything. She was sitting in the waiting room crying, convinced she'd never recover. I sat down beside her. Didn't say anything at first, just sat. Finally, she looked at me. How did you do it? How did you survive? I thought about my answer carefully. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one moment of courage at a time. I took her hand. You survive by refusing to let them have the last word about who you are, by building something they can't touch, your sense of self, your truth, your future. And someday you use what you survive to help someone else survive. Does it get better? It gets different. And different can be beautiful if you let it. She nodded, started crying again, but this time with something like hope in her eyes. I stayed with her until she was ready to start her journey, until she believed she could survive this. Because that's what we do. We survive, we rebuild, we help others survive and rebuild, and we stop hiding our power. At 64 years old, I finally understand something it took me a lifetime to learn. True power isn't control. It's not money. It's not revenge. True power is standing in your truth, claiming your story, building something that outlasts you. True power is looking at your broken shell and seeing beauty. True power is letting go when it's time and holding on to what matters. True power is knowing that you don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You just have to survive and keep going and refuse to let anyone make you small. That's the empire I built. Not bricks and contracts and bank accounts, but truth, freedom, legacy, and it was worth every single second.